And you know another thing that's interesting is greed. Greed is a really big part of this story. Like the workers who worked there, everyone got a tip when they had a late-term abortion, and they ended up with like loads of cash. And people really liked that. Go figure. Yeah.
For as awful a man as he was, the guy that played him was amazing.
He's amazing. Earl Billings. Yeah. And it's kind of weird because he hasn't met him. You know, I mean, I've met Goznell. I've been in the prison with him like for an afternoon, and I mean, Earl has it spot on. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, yeah. But it's really funny you say that. Everyone picks out Earl and says they just think Earl is fabulous. He is really great. Yeah.
What you said about the mental health issues and the social issues of the people he hired, he preyed on those people.
You're right. Yeah. And it's interesting, some of you who've read the book know about that's a very good point actually. And I actually do make a distinction between, people in Harrisburg aren't mentally ill, right? But the people who worked for him, yeah, I totally agree with you, but they also like the money, but I do agree with you that they were very broken. But Steve Massoff remains a major problem for me. So Steve Massoff brought me back to prayer. I hadn't prayed in years. And the testimony of Steve Massoff is the worst thing I've ever read. And it's in the book, and I literally knelt down beside the computer. Because I just got really frightened. I'm a grown woman, you know. And I got frightened. So he said I was a fireman in hell. He said we ran with scissors. There were so many of them. He said that under oath. He said the walls, blood ran down the walls. He said that under oath. He said to the judge, indulge me, he said, put your hand behind your neck there. Feel that soft bit. Yeah, that's where we cut. He said that in the court. And by the way, you know what else is crazy? That journalists didn't think that was a story. I've written to Steve Massoff and he didn't write back. It's very interesting. Of course, we've written to Goznell and he writes all the time. He writes all the time. I remember saying to Jim Wood years ago, it feels like so many years ago now, me and Jim, but I said to Jim, I'm thinking of getting in touch with Goznell, will he write? And Jim said to me, Jim is so wise, these cops know everything about people. He said to me, yeah, he'll be in touch with you, and he will be in touch with you until the day he dies. And I swear it feels like that. He phones us all the time. He writes poetry and sends it to us in envelopes. I mean, it's gross. Some of his poetry is in the back of the book, by the way. Any other? Yeah? Yes?
Whatever happened to Goznell's daughter?
She is in college. She did really well in her, whatever it's called, what do you call it? SATs. Yeah, she did really well. She went to college. He has 7 children. One of them, you probably know, one of them got into trouble, right? He broke into a house or whatever. Yeah. But that daughter, the one that's kind of featured in the movie, the teenager, she did fine. And he's really proud of her, and he tells you how well she did in exams and how smart she is, because it reflects well on him. I mean, he is so incredibly narcissistic. He sang to me in the prison twice and kept touching my leg. And my husband's sitting there, he's gross. He really is gross. And he has a whole thing with feet, which of course is interesting. So he talks about his own feet all the time. He's literally, that movie, the Hannibal Lecter thing or whatever. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Those characters they create in Hollywood, they're not made out of nothing. They're made from something. And when I met him, I thought, my God, this is exactly. He has this really soft voice that's very melodious. And he smiles all the time. And at the beginning, as a journalist, I wanted to warm him up, so I let him talk about stuff he wanted to talk about. And then I started, coming after him. And, when I started asking the hard questions, he'd say things like, he'd go, oh, you know about that. Like, he's awful. He's just awful.